The Architecture of Subtraction: 10 Things You Should Quietly Remove from Your Life. This month, the paradox of addition. We live in a culture obsessed with addition. Self-help gurus constantly urge us to add a new habit, add a new skill, or add a new tool to our morning routine. We are told that the path to fulfillment, productivity, and peace is paved with more effort, more activity, and more complex systems. Yet, for many, this relentless pursuit of more results only in exhaustion, mental clutter, and a nagging sense that we're running faster just to stay in the same place. The truly transformative breakthroughs often come not from adding, but from subtraction. The philosophy of via negativa, the idea that wisdom is gained by understanding what not to do, and that life is improved by removing the negative rather than striving for the positive, offers a profound pathway to quiet, sustainable growth. It is an architecture of self-improvement built on clarity and spaciousness. This month, the most powerful commitment we can make is not to start 10 new things, but to quietly, deliberately, and permanently remove 10 corrosive habits, mindsets, and environmental drags. By identifying and excising these internal and external weights, we create the essential mental and emotional space required for true excellence to emerge. This essay will systematically explore the 10 most impactful elements to quietly remove from your life this month, detailing the burden of each and providing actionable strategies for their permanent removal. 2. The 10 quiet removals. 1. The need for external validation. The constant, low-grade desire for approval from others acts as an invisible anchor, tethering our self-worth to fluctuating external opinions. This need for validation manifests in several ways: obsessively checking social media likes, tailoring our opinions to fit the room, or delaying a decision until we've received the tacit approval of a friend or mentor. Psychologically, this dependency starves the development of self-efficacy, the belief in our own capacity to execute behaviors necessary to produce specific performance attainments. When our internal operating system requires an external password validation to boot up, we are constantly vulnerable to mood swings and paralysis whenever that password isn't readily available. The cost. This habit drains energy that could be spent on authentic contribution. It replaces intrinsic motivation, doing something because it aligns with your values, with extrinsic motivation, doing something for the reward of praise, which is less resilient and ultimately less satisfying. The quiet removal process. Start by implementing a 24-hour approval fast. For one full day, make 3 major decisions: what to eat, what task to tackle first, how to handle a minor conflict, without seeking any input or commentary. Quietly observe the inevitable anxiety that arises and label it without judgment. Journaling on the prompt, "What would I do right now if I knew no one would ever see it?" can help reroute decision-making back to the internal compass. The goal is not to become aloof, but to ensure your core value assessment of your actions is self-contained. The benefit: by removing the need for external validation, you gain unshakable composure. Your actions become more focused, your decisions clearer, and your emotional state more stable because the locus of control shifts entirely back into your own hands. 2. The habit of complaining without action. Complaining is a tempting, short-term emotional release. It offers the comfort of commiseration and the temporary relief of externalizing discomfort. However, habitual complaining, unaccompanied by any corresponding action plan, is highly destructive. It is a form of learned helplessness where the individual accepts a negative situation while simultaneously performing a ritual, complaining, that reinforces their perceived lack of agency. The cost. Habitual complaining programs the brain to seek out problems, filtering reality through a lens of inadequacy and negativity. It poisons relationships by making the complainer a source of emotional fatigue, and it halts progress by replacing proactive problem-solving with passive venting. The quiet removal process. The key is to replace the mechanism, not merely suppress it. Adopt the 3-sentence rule, or the solution-only rule. When you catch yourself starting a complaint, You are only allowed to speak 3 sentences about the issue. The 4th sentence must be a small, immediate action you will take to address it, or a statement asking for advice on the next step. For example, the new project brief is disorganized, and I can't find the necessary files. This is making me feel overwhelmed. I will email the project lead right now, asking specifically for the file structure diagram. Quietly implementing this filter ensures that emotional venting is immediately channeled into productive motion. The benefit: removing this habit creates proactive momentum. You cease to be a victim of circumstances and re-establish yourself as the agent of change in your own life, freeing up substantial mental energy previously dedicated to resistance. 3. Unexamined digital notifications. Our phones and computers are designed to be casinos for attention, and notifications are the house's call to the next spin. These unexamined, default-enabled pings and banners represent an assault on the attentional system, constantly pulling us into a state of continuous partial attention. Every uninvited alert triggers a switch-tasking penalty, where it takes the brain an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to fully return to the original task. The cost: chronic distraction fragments focus, diminishes deep work capacity, and increases stress hormones like cortisol, because the brain is constantly on alert for the next potential threat or reward. It fundamentally prevents flow state. The quiet removal process: dedicate 1 hour this month to a digital audit. Go into your phone and computer settings and follow a strict, categorical rule. If a notification does not require an immediate, life-critical response, family emergency, or work system failure, it is turned off. Specifically, remove all notifications for social media, most news apps, and promotional emails. The quiet part is resisting the urge to even check the notification counter badges, the red dots. Train yourself to check essential apps only at pre-scheduled, intentional time, e.g., 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 5 p.m. The benefit: by removing this perpetual cognitive load, you reclaim attentional sovereignty. Your focus deepens, your anxiety related to the fear of missing out, FOMO, diminishes, and you begin to experience sustained periods of high-quality work. 4. Toxic comparison. Social media envy. Comparing ourselves to others is an intrinsic human behavior, but in the age of curated digital lives, this mechanism has become distorted and toxic. Social media feeds are not accurate reflections of reality. They are highlight reels, edited down to perfection, creating an impossible standard. Toxic comparison is the mental habit of measuring our messy, 3-dimensional reality against the airbrushed, 2-dimensional fantasies of others. The cost: this habit fosters chronic dissatisfaction, minimizes one's own genuine achievements, and creates a cycle of shame and self-doubt. It shifts focus from internal improvement to external appearance, eroding personal authenticity. The quiet removal process: introduce the substitution filter. Every time you feel the pang of envy or inadequacy while scrolling, immediately ask yourself 2 questions. 1. What is the specific, actionable value this person represents? E.g., discipline, creativity, connection. 2. How can I quietly embody that value in my own life right now? This transforms passive envy into active inspiration. Physically, mute accounts that consistently trigger negative feelings without unfollowing them, thereby removing the visual drag without the social drama of disconnection. This quiet reframing reclaims your emotional space. The benefit: removing toxic comparison grants authentic self-acceptance. You are freed to pursue your unique trajectory and appreciate your current stage without the crippling distraction of external performance anxiety. 5. The myth of multitasking. Multitasking is one of the most celebrated and destructive lies of modern productivity. It is physically impossible for the human brain to process 2 non-automatic, high-level cognitive tasks simultaneously. What we call multitasking is actually rapid switch tasking, involving constantly pulling the cognitive focus from one task to the next. The cost. Research shows that switch tasking can reduce productivity by up to 40%, increases the error rate, and accelerates cognitive fatigue. It prevents us from ever engaging in the deep, singular focus that yields the most valuable intellectual output. The quiet removal process. Adopt the practice of single tasking by default. When starting a new work block, explicitly declare the single task you will complete for the next 25 or 50 minutes, e.g., I will draft the proposal. Then, physically remove or hide the inputs for all other tasks. This means closing all tabs unrelated to the task, placing the phone in another room, and putting up a Do Not Disturb sign, physical or digital. The removal is quiet because it's a commitment made to yourself about your own internal focus boundaries. The benefit: by removing this myth, you gain genuine efficiency and quality. You begin to experience flow, where the work feels easier, time seems to compress, and the final output is drastically higher in quality due to undivided attention. 6. Vague goals and commitments. We often clutter our mental space with aspirations that are too vague to be actionable. A goal like, I want to be happier, or I need to get better at coding, is functionally useless because it lacks a clear finish line and a measurable starting point. These vague commitments create a background hum of guilt and incompetence because they are goals we can never truly achieve, only vaguely pursue. The cost: vague goals waste finite mental resources on planning that never culminates in execution. They lead to busy work because we don't know what high-leverage activity to prioritize, and they undermine motivation by preventing the brain from experiencing the small, satisfying wins necessary to build self-confidence. The quiet removal process. This month, quietly retire all goals that fail the SMART criteria: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. For every vague commitment you have, either remove it entirely or translate it into a specific action metric, SAM. Be happier becomes spend 15 minutes journaling 3 times a week. Get better at coding becomes complete 1 intermediate Python lesson by Friday. The removal of the ambiguous goal is quiet, but the clarity it leaves behind is powerful. The benefit: removing vagueness installs intentionality. Your daily actions become directly linked to observable progress, replacing generalized stress with focused execution and measurable success. 7. Unpaid emotional debts, holding grudges and resentment. Emotional clutter is often heavier and more costly than physical clutter. Resentment is the internal state of continuously repaying an emotional debt owed to you by another person. Holding a grudge is not an act of punishment against the offender. It is an act of self-imprisonment. You dedicate precious mental resources to preserving a past injury, constantly replaying the scenario and reinforcing the pain. The cost: this unpaid debt raises internal stress levels, narrows perspective, and physically manifests as tension and anxiety. It keeps you emotionally bound to the very person or event you wish to be free from. The quiet removal process. Practice the radical forgiveness journaling. This is a quiet, non-public process. Write a letter to the person or situation, detailing the injury and the cost of holding on to it. Crucially, end the letter not by forgiving them for their sake, but by granting yourself release for your sake. You are not forgetting, you are simply removing the internal mandate to re-experience the event. Tear up the letter or delete the file. The act of removal is internal, private, and solely for your benefit. The benefit: removing emotional debt grants psychological freedom. The energy previously spent guarding the injury is reinvested into present-day opportunities and the cultivation of joy. 8. The wait-and-see mindset. Procrastination by indecision. A common form of procrastination is not avoiding work entirely, but avoiding the commitment required to start the work. The wait-and-see mindset is the illusion that the optimal course of action will reveal itself if we simply delay the decision. This is often rooted in a fear of failure or a desire for perfection, leading to analysis paralysis. The cost: indecision consumes more time and mental energy than even a wrong decision. because it keeps possibilities open and resources tied up. It is the silent killer of momentum, leading to lost opportunities and increased self-reproach. The quiet removal process. Implement the 2-minute rule for decisions. If a decision can be made in 2 minutes or less, make it immediately. For larger tasks, the quiet removal is to commit to the next smallest physical action, not the entire project. For instance, if you need to start a daunting report, remove the wait and see by immediately committing to open the document and write the title. The goal is to remove the psychological barrier to entry. This month, vow to eliminate the phrase, "I'll think about it later," and replace it with, "I will commit to a minimum viable action now." The benefit: removing this hesitation generates irresistible momentum. By prioritizing immediate, imperfect action over delayed, perfect planning, you build a powerful bias toward execution. 9. Excessive news consumption, doom scrolling. In a world of constant information, the habit of doom scrolling or excessive news consumption is a severe drain on mental well-being and productivity. This habit, the reflexive checking of headlines, often focused on negative or high-stakes global events, is a maladaptive coping mechanism that provides the illusion of control through information absorption. The cost. It introduces a constant stream of external stress and negativity, contributes to generalized anxiety, and crowds out valuable creative and reflective time. It is a massive consumer of the attentional buffer, leaving little cognitive bandwidth for personal or professional problem solving. The quiet removal process. Enforce news scheduling. Quietly remove news consumption from your phone's home screen and from reactive moments, waking up, waiting in line. Instead, commit to checking the news only once per day for a maximum of 15 minutes at a fixed time, e.g., 6 p.m. During this time, rely on high-quality, curated summaries rather than reactive headlines. The quietness of this removal comes from the private commitment to limit exposure and reclaim the precious mental quiet of the morning and workday. The benefit: removing this constant stream of crisis grants emotional resilience and a restored sense of proportional reality, allowing you to focus your finite energy on the things you can actually control. 10. The clutter of just-in-case items, physical and digital. Our environment, both physical and digital, is often choked by items and files kept just in case. This accumulation includes old clothes that might fit again, outdated documents that might be needed for tax purposes, though the retention period is long past, and unnecessary desktop icons. This clutter represents unresolved decisions and future obligations. The cost. This is known as cognitive load. Every item we own, physical or digital, requires a tiny sliver of mental processing power. The brain must register, categorize, and recall the potential utility of these items. Excessive clutter translates directly into chronic, low-level mental distraction and decision fatigue. The quiet removal process. Apply the 1-month rule to all physical items and the 1-year rule to digital files. If you haven't used a physical item or accessed a digital file in that time frame, quietly remove it, donate, recycle, or delete. For the digital space, ruthlessly delete duplicate files, old meeting notes, and irrelevant downloads. The quietness of this removal is key. Do it privately and methodically, not as a large, dramatic purge, but as a systematic clearing of mental holding patterns. The benefit: removing this clutter restores clarity and focus. The physical and digital space reflects the internal mental state. Less stuff means fewer distractions, fewer decisions, and a lighter cognitive burden. 3. The quiet power of subtraction. The quest for a better life is often framed as a climb, but sometimes it is best framed as a descent, a shedding of excess weight that allows the ascent to become effortless. The 10 habits, mindsets, and environmental conditions detailed above are silent saboteurs of personal peace and productivity. They are not grand vices, but rather the small, daily erosions of focus, authenticity, and energy. By committing to quietly remove these elements this month, you engage in the architecture of subtraction. You are not merely clearing space, you are consciously redefining your essential operating environment. You are removing the external demands of validation, the internal corrosion of resentment, and the digital drag of distraction. The profound shift occurs not with the fanfare of adding a new, demanding routine, but with the quiet realization of the immense energy and freedom that results when these invisible weights are simply gone. Start small, be consistent, and observe how your life expands when you deliberately choose less, better, and quieter.